Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, if you've been following along, I've done a couple of videos on bone health explaining why it's so important to look after your bones. Last video I talked about weight-bearing exercise and how it's one of the lifestyle changes that you can make sure you're keeping your bones healthy. Now you can find that video over here somewhere. Exercise is just one piece of the puzzle though, because alongside physical activity, nutrition and what you put into your body is equally as important for your health and, in this case, for your bones. So sticking with the theme of bone health, today I'll be talking about one of the most important nutrients for our bodies, and that is calcium. Now, calcium has many different roles in the body, but it is essential for our bones, so if you want to make more changes to your lifestyle to improve your health, looking at how much calcium you are getting in your diet is a very good place to start. So what is calcium? Calcium is a mineral. So when it comes to nutrition and all the nutrients that you need to have a healthy diet, you have two broad categories: your macronutrients and your micronutrients. Micronutrients include vitamins and minerals, and calcium falls under the minerals category. Calcium is the most abundant mineral in the human body. It makes up about 1.5% of total body weight, and most of this calcium is actually stored in your bones and your teeth. The little amount that isn't kept in bones is found in blood, muscles, and also your nerves. Now, just based on where calcium is found, you can pretty much guess what it's used for. If most calcium is found in bones and teeth, then you guessed it. Calcium is very important for maintaining strong bones and teeth. And that is because calcium is the main component of what is called the bone matrix. This is essentially the structure or framework that makes up bones. If you had supervision and you could see the insides of your bones, you would see this very densely packed matrix, and it's packed full of minerals and proteins that all work together to give bones the strength and durability that they have. And calcium is the main mineral in this matrix. Now, in my previous videos, I talked about the process of bone maintenance, where there is this balance of bones being broken down and rebuilt all throughout your life. This is how we get rid of old bone tissue and replace it with new bone tissue. Now, calcium is very important in this process because it's needed to rebuild all the bones. But if you don't have enough calcium in your blood, then your bones will start to sacrifice some of the calcium within them to make sure there's enough calcium in your blood.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Now, this may at first sound good and practical. We obviously want the blood to have enough calcium, but if your bones give up their calcium, they will get weaker, they will become less dense, and this is what eventually can lead to osteoporosis. Now, the good news is that if you have enough calcium in your diet, the amount of calcium in your blood will be balanced, and any extra calcium will actually go to your bones for storage, and that makes your bones strong and more dense. So the key takeaway here is make sure you have enough calcium and there will be no problems. So that covers why we need calcium for bones, and that is the main role that calcium plays, but I did mention that there were other important roles that it has. And I've mentioned that calcium is found in our blood, and our body goes to a bit of effort to make sure there is enough calcium in the blood. So that must mean it has a job to do there. And it does. Calcium is involved in blood clotting. If you get a cut on your finger, it eventually stops bleeding, and that's because of blood clotting. The process is quite complex, but calcium is needed in the reactions that take place to both form the clot and also keep it stable and in place. Now, blood is also a way for things to be transported all around the body, and calcium needs to get to areas such as certain muscles, because another important role it has is helping muscles contract. When you need your muscles to work, it is usually your brain that will kick everything into motion. The brain will send nerve signals to the muscles that we need, and when the muscle gets the message, calcium actually gets released from storage areas and muscle contraction will begin to take place. The entire process is a bit complex. Calcium isn't the only thing needed, and I would need another video to entirely explain how muscles actually contract. But for the purpose of this video, I just want you to know that without calcium, your muscles are not going to contract. So if you enjoy movement, enjoy keeping fit, if you like to lift weights, make sure calcium is one of the nutrients you are paying attention to. So now you know what calcium is needed for in your body. That isn't an exhaustive list, there is definitely more that calcium is used for, but I have covered the main roles for you. The next thing you need to know then is what happens if you don't have enough calcium. Based on what I have said that we need calcium for, you can probably put together what might happen if you have a diet that's lacking in calcium. The main issue will be with your bones. Calcium is central to bone health, and if you don't have enough calcium, you can get weak and brittle bones. This can lead to osteoporosis, which is a chronic health condition that increases the risks of bone fractures. It is more important for older adults, usually over 65 years old, to really make sure they get enough calcium because the risk of osteoporosis increases with age. As I mentioned before, calcium is important for muscle contraction, and calcium deficiency is one of the reasons that people may get muscle cramps and spasms. Having a diet that is lacking in calcium can also lead to general muscle weakness. Now, one thing I didn't mention earlier was that calcium is also important for making sure your teeth are strong. So a lack of calcium can lead to weakened teeth and a higher chance of getting cavities. Again, I haven't gone through every single thing that could go wrong if you have a calcium deficiency, but you can get the idea that calcium is quite important. And if you are wanting to look after your bones, a small change that you can make is adjusting your diet to make sure you're getting enough calcium. Like I say, play the long game and make those smaller changes as early as you can and reap those benefits for the rest of your life. But you might be wondering how much calcium is actually needed. Well, it changes depending on age, but for average adults aged 19 to 50 years old, the recommended daily intake is 1,000 milligrams per day. Now, this number goes up if you are over 50 years old, and it's higher if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. Younger people aged 9 to 18 years old also have an increased need, and this is to make sure that peak bone density is as high as possible, which I have mentioned in previous videos. Recommended daily intakes are general guidelines, and they are always based on an average individual. Your needs may be below or higher depending on your health and the amount of physical activity that you do. So always make sure you are having a diet that is individualized to yourself, and see a professional if you need to. Now that you know how much calcium you need, it might be a good idea to know where you can find it. The food group associated most with calcium is dairy products, so your milk, cheese, and yogurt. Now these are some of the foods with the highest amounts of calcium. For example, 1 cup of milk can give you about 300 milligrams of calcium. For those who don't have animal products or aren't big fans of dairy, leafy greens, tofu, nuts and seeds such as almonds and chia seeds are also good sources of calcium. 1 cup of cooked spinach has about 240 milligrams of calcium. A handful of almonds can give you 75 milligrams. I've included a table here to show some good sources of calcium and how much you can expect to get from a serve. If you think you might struggle with getting the calcium you need, there are also fortified foods. So things like breakfast cereals and certain milks like soy or almond milk can be fortified with extra calcium. And these are good ways to boost the calcium in your diet if you aren't quite hitting your recommended intakes. But unfortunately, it isn't just as simple as just looking at the numbers on the nutrient information label. Not all sources of calcium are equal. The calcium that comes from dairy products is the best because it is highly bioavailable, meaning that you will absorb more of the calcium that you consume from those sources. Calcium found in vegetables like your leafy greens are not as well absorbed. This is because some plant-based foods contain substances that can bind to calcium and prevent it getting absorbed into your body. These substances are called oxalates and phytates. But this doesn't mean that you should write off plant-based sources of calcium. You may just need to eat more to get the amount you need. And of course, vegetables have many more benefits than just calcium, so they need to be a part of your diet regardless. Now, finally, if you are calcium deficient and diet isn't going to be enough to boost your calcium levels, then supplementation might be where you need to look. There are 2 main forms of calcium that you will find in supplements, and those are calcium carbonate and calcium citrate. Calcium carbonate is the most common and affordable form and is well absorbed in your body if it is taken with meals. This is because it does need a certain amount of stomach acid in order to be absorbed best. So if you have digestive issues or are taking any medications that reduces how acidic your stomach acid is, then this isn't the best option for you. Calcium citrate, on the other hand, is better absorbed than calcium carbonate, It also doesn't need the high acidic environment in your stomach, so it can be taken with or without food. This is a better option for those with digestive issues and the medications that I mentioned earlier. And that brings me to the end of this video. Bit of a long one today, but calcium is such an important nutrient and it has lots of information to go along with it. I definitely didn't cover everything, but there is enough here to hopefully show you how important it is and how you can start trying to get more calcium into your diet if you need to. If you learned something or enjoyed the video, please, as usual, give a like and subscribe for more. There's a new video every week, so please leave a comment if you want any more information on anything and I will do my best to answer. Keep playing the long game and I will see you next week.